If you need an API to practice testing, if you are getting into QA, automation, or just want to play around with APIs, the one I recommend, the one I found to be very useful is WooCommerce API. WooCommerce API is really popular. It is production ready, which means it's not like a sample API. It's a real API that's been used in millions of websites. So you can actually use it and have a real experience with it. So WooCommerce is actually a plugin for WordPress. So you will need to install WordPress, then install a plugin WooCommerce, right? It's pretty straightforward though. So here are the tools that I'm going to recommend to be able to do this really easy. You can have it set up and running as easy as maybe 10-15 minutes, right? So the first thing is I recommend doing MAMP. MAMP just makes things a lot easier. It's a stack of web application, Apache, Nginx, PHP, and MySQL database. So everything you need to be able to run WordPress. So just go on YouTube, even in my channel, say, how do I run WordPress with MAMP? Super simple. With MAMP, you run WordPress. Once you run WordPress, you install WooCommerce plugin. You don't have to customize it or anything because you don't care about the front end. It's just about the backend, the API. So you install WooCommerce REST API. You get your credentials. There is documentation for it. It's really popular. So there's tons of documentation that the official one is the best one. Then even on this page, if you just Google WooCommerce REST API documentation, they have a documentation of a really detailed documentation of the API itself with examples, how to make the APIs. There is a curl example and the Python example. And if you want to use Node or any of the other languages, you can. And look how many endpoints there are. I use a lot of those in my automation courses, and even in my bootcamp, we use this API to practice because there's just tons. We barely touch the surface because there is so many APIs that you can practice with. And again, like I said, this is production ready API, so it's pretty awesome. It's very real. Orders API, you can play around creating orders, which is a little bit complicated. If you want to start with simple one, you go to products API. Products API is pretty simple, easy to understand because it's a product. Customers API is another one that's pretty straightforward, easy to understand. Coupons API is another one that is simple and easy. But then you can just go complicated into refunds and reports and tax. There's just tons of APIs. So WooCommerce API, I recommend it. One, it is production ready and a lot of APIs, a lot of production ready, basically professional API. Two, really easy to set up. And three, I guess, free, totally free to use. All right, so if you want to practice API testing, backend testing, this is the tool that I use and I recommend you do the same. I create content related to testing, especially automation and coding in general. So make sure you give me a follow if that is the kind of stuff you'd like to see.